Okay, and we are recording. So my guest today is Mikhayla Stover. So Mikhayla, could you just start by just sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mikhayla Stover. I am 26 years old and I live in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Um, and I am a soon-to-be lawyer. I'm still technically waiting on my license, but I have passed the bar, so it's like we're waiting. And I work I'm an immigration lawyer. I work for the Catholic Legal Immigration Network in their religious immigration department, and I help priests and nuns and things get visas so that they can come to the United States and yeah, work for the church and spread the gospel, which is really
Oh my
great.
gosh, that's so cool.
Um, I'm trying to think of other like fun facts about me.
I know you have a
I have a
cat.
cat
You have
named
a cat.
Senator Pancake. Yes, I have a cat named Senator Pancake. He's actually sleeping on my feet at like right now, which is cute. And yeah, that's like oh, I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay,
I guess that's probably pertinent. And I went to undergraduate at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and then I went to law school at Catholic University here in DC.
cool, awesome. So you're from Tennessee.
Yeah.
Do you tell me about your
hmm
family?
Oh yeah, let's talk about them. So my mom's from like Wisconsin, and my dad's from Pennsylvania. They met in the military and got married, etc. Um, and I have two sisters. Both are younger than me. One's named Mackenzie, and the youngest is Megan. And they're both in their 20s, so they're not like young or anything. And is this where you'd like me to like talk about like my like family's religious
Yeah,
history?
I'm
Sorry,
just
I
curious.
didn't.
So like,
Yeah,
was your
cool. Yeah,
family religious growing up, or not so much? Or
yeah. So it's kind of funny. So yes, for quite a bit of it. So my dad actually, funnily enough, was a Calvinist pastor
okay,
uh, before he met my mom. It was really funny. He left his first marriage and then joined the military and then met my mom and had me. And that all happened like, very quickly, I guess. He left ministry and then, like joined the military, etc. So at one point in time, he was a like Calvinist minister or preacher or something. And but growing up, um, I was raised in a like Southern Baptist megachurch type deal, very, very classic Southern Baptist megachurch, like with the rock band and the, huge thousands of people crowds and et cetera, et cetera. But my dad, like, I don't know, never didn't super practice like past me being
hmm
like a small kid. My mom definitely like stayed going to church for much longer. But yeah, and so we grew up sort of doing the classic like Sunday church and then Wednesday, youth night or whatever. I don't
yep.
know if that's like a regional thing or if that's like I don't know. I feel like Wednesday night is just like really classic.
Yep.
I don't know.
I don't know. I
Youth
can't tell
night
you if
in
it's a
Protestant
regional
world.
thing because I'm from Florida, and but we
Hmm.
definitely did that. Like that was
So,
Wednesday night,
yeah.
and I went to Southern Baptist Church
Right,
too.
yeah,
So
right. You get it. Yeah, it was like there. I don't know. It must be in the theological code, as it were. There must be like a Wednesday night
yeah,
rules or something.
yeah. It's kind of weird.
But yeah,
Like
and
now that you
so
mention it, I'm like, wait,
mm,
not everybody does that.
no, no, they don't, which is really weird. Like I remember growing up, like that was like super super classic. Like everybody I knew, like Wednesday night, that was just
Yep.
like when you went to church for your like little youth group night or whatever. And like that's like true like all over the South, which is really funny. But like I don't really know a lot of like Protestant friends like
Hmm.
more up north who do that, which is funny. But yeah, and so I don't know. It was one of those things where like I went because I, you know, was supposed to, and that was just it was just sort of like it wasn't really something that you really like questioned. It was just, you just did it.
Yep.
And I think that I don't know. I think that as I got older and became a teenager, I had a lot of um like let's call them problems. I struggle. I've struggled a lot with mental health my entire life. I have really, really severe ADHD, but actually wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. So, pretty much for my whole life up until my adulthood, I was struggling with like undiagnosed ADHD and like depression, anxiety, and things. So I've struggled with mental health my whole life. And, as a teenager, it's just like not, you're just like a vulnerable time, right? Like everybody, it's
Oh
just
gosh.
like you're so, oh, right, literally.
The other day I was
And
like thinking
so,
back on like teenagehood, and I was like, that was terrible. Like, I'm so glad that that's over.
it's like a loathsome experience, I think. But yeah, and I think that for various reasons, but I think for various reasons, I definitely developed a like relationship of fear with the Lord. It was very much like something that, you know, in my head you had to earn, right? You had to like,
Interesting.
I yeah, I feel like I was kind of constantly concerned with whether or not I was good enough to be loved by Jesus,
Hmm.
and like, whether or not I was doing all the right things, and Calvin, which Southern Baptism borrows a lot from, Calvinist theology and
Hmm.
such. And like Calvinist theology in particular is very concerned with this concept of, you know, humanity as because the Catholic Church teaches that although our natures are fallen, are as
Yes.
humanity, we are inherently
Yes.
good, right? Which is different from Catholicism, different from Calvinism, whereas Calvinism says, because of the fall, we are inherently,
Yep.
they don't really make that like nature distinction. It's
Yes.
just humanity is inherently sinful.
Yeah, the way that I've heard it put is
Which
like
like,
your fallen nature. And it was only like after
yeah,
becoming Catholic, where I was like, wait, it's not like we're not our nature is fallen, but that's not our
but
nature.
our
Like we are by
essence, like
nature
our
good.
created, yes, right. Like it's kind of this difference of like we have our natures, but there is something about us as
Yep.
creation, as a created being, which is inherently good based on the fact that we
Yep.
exist. Um, uh,
Total
we love
depravity.
Pope
That's the
Benedict.
term, right? In Calvinism. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tulip or something. It's like total depravity, something something, and it goes. It's like an acronym, but yeah, total depravity, right? And so, the unfortunate thing is, when you are, a teenage girl in America, and, and also with the various, kind of cultural issues that come with, living in the Southern United States and being raised Southern Baptist, even, when you kind of have a lifetime of this, and then you just kind of consistently hear, total deprivation. You are inherently depraved. It's almost like this, you know, idea that like we're lucky that God even gives us a second glance type of
Yeah.
culture. Now, I'm not saying that that's is necessarily what you know Southern Baptist teacher or even believe, just how I internalized
Hmm.
it as a teenager, which is, a distinction from what may have actually been, taught.
Sure.
But yeah, and so I feel like I definitely internalized that. And so as I like grew older, it definitely became more just like a conflict,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like personally contentious. And then when I was a teenager, like I think like 16-ish, my family just stopped practicing altogether. We stopped going to church and doing all the thing. It really just became, you know, just not really a super huge part of our lives anymore. And then as of now, I'm the only practicing Christian in my family.
Gotcha.
My sisters are both atheists. My parents, I mean, they haven't. I don't think they've gone to church for anything like Christmas or anything like that. I think honestly, probably since I was a teenager. I think like maybe once every 2 years or
Hmm.
something, but nothing really. They're definitely not practicing. So yeah, no. As of now, like I'm really the only practicing Christian in my family.
Gotcha. Oof. Well, so then how did you
Yeah.
become interested in Catholicism then? That's a leap, right?
And
From Southern
that is
Baptist to
it is.
Catholic.
It sure is, especially in a place like Tennessee, where I think it's only something like 5-ish% of the population is Catholic. I knew one Catholic my entire life. Not no joke. I knew a
Your
single
token Catholic
Catholic up
friend,
until
right?
college. My token Catholic friend. That's right. That's right. And now I'm that for other people, which is very funny. And so yeah, so I went to college at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And what's funny is I'm very clever in my opinion. The Catholic Center, which is actually it's a parish, it's a working parish, St. John the 23rd, is actually across the street from the freshman dorm. And so if you to go anywhere, I walked past it every single day.
Hmm.
And yeah, and like I said, I at that time I was just very what's a good word? I think I was very desperate for a lot of things, like very desperate for community and very desperate for relationship, with other people. And also, I think I mean, obviously, like now looking back, like of course, like, I'm
Sure.
very desperate for like the Lord, but I didn't have like a name for it.
Mhm.
Definitely not. Like it was just this like I remember one time I described it to a friend as like it was this sense of like really deep restlessness. Like no matter what, I just like never felt emotionally or like spiritually satisfied. And yeah, and so I just like walk past the Catholic Center like every day, and it's really cute. There's these two huge trees outside the parish, and in warm weather, students will we hammocks.
Mhm.
They like you'd like tie them to trees or something, and we would do I guess essentially like stacks. It would be like a bunch of students would just like put these hammocks in the trees and like hang out. So they were like always outside, and it was just very like I don't know. It was very clear that like they loved each other and
So
like
that
hung
wasn't
out
you, that
all the
was
time.
that group that hung out.
But yeah,
Okay.
right. And so I would like walk past them, every day, and I just like I don't know. I would see them outside and like hanging out and laughing and just being a community. And I don't know. It was just this like I can't think of like a moment where it was like I'm gonna go talk to the Catholic Center today, et cetera, et cetera. Like it wasn't really any like thing like that. It was a very much like I mean it was the Holy Spirit. Like it was very instinctual.
Hmm.
Like I can't really think of like a rational okay, and this is why I want to go do this
Yeah.
because XYZ reasons. Like it just I don't
It
know.
sounds
It
like
just
you were just kind of
happened. Like
drawn,
something
like,
it literally like I'm not joking. It literally I joke that it's like the Holy Spirit literally just like took possession of my body and was like, okay, you're just gonna go talk to them and then it's gonna be fine. But yeah, and so one day I just like it kind of it was just like the Holy Spirit sort of just like was like, okay, it has to be like right now. And I walked up to one of the students there who is in the hammock and I literally was like, do you have a youth group? Also, is it okay if I'm not Catholic? Can I come hang out with you guys? As a third question, like um, don't super know anything
yeah,
about Catholicism, but like would love to hang.
that's amazing.
Essentially, I know it's so funny, which is especially because like at that time I was not shy, just quite timid around like new groups of people,
Was this when
uh,
you were a
and
freshman?
yeah.
Or, okay.
Yep, I was 18 years old. Yep, it was literally like I think this was like my probably my second month at
Okay.
college. Yeah, it was like it was probably like September-ish of my freshman year. So yeah, second month of college, and I just kind of like started going to their, which was also on Wednesdays. Very funny. I started going to like their kind of like college weekly. It's called Vol Catholic. It's this like cute little college night at the parish where all the students go and there's like programming and stuff. And I sort of just like I never stopped going. Um,
Was
yeah,
there a point
and
where you were
like
like, and okay, like
mm,
I'm gonna become Catholic? Like, is there a point that you remember? Or was it
yeah,
just like
yeah.
one day you found yourself in the RCA class?
No, there definitely was a point. I mean, I definitely like as it was really funny. I had a friend, her name was Claire, and she was a senior at the time, but I would like we'd get coffee and I would like ask her all of these questions about Catholicism and things. And I think I knew subconsciously, like again, just like sort of instinctually that this is like what I wanted quite early on. But the moment where it was like it moved to like a conscious level was they have these like semester, like every semester there was like a retreat. It was called Awakening. And it was like again really classic, like like college retreat, and there would be like talks by the students
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. But one of the things that they did was adoration.
Mm.
And it was really funny because I had been hanging out like a bunch with at the Catholic Center, and so I just made a bunch of friends and things like that. And I think sometimes they like forgot kind of that I wasn't Catholic,
Hmm.
because one of the students was who was kind of like leading my group was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna like go to adoration. It's almost time to go. And I was like, cool. Like, side note, what is adoration? Because I'd literally never been. And I will never forget, it was the funniest thing. Literally will never forget, like, all of my friends at one time got this expression of just like realization and like utter horror on their faces as they realized they had exactly 30 seconds to explain the real presence
Oh
of
my
the
gosh.
Eucharist to me before, yeah, right. It was like they were literally like, okay, cool, so we have 30 seconds to like summarize the point of
Hmm.
all of time and history, and then we're just going to go in the next room and it's just going to be there. But I remember the girl who was sort of in charge of my like small group or whatever was just like so earnestly was like, so this is not going to make sense. She's like, it's not. She's like,
Hmm.
I don't have time to explain it. It's not going to make sense. I just need you to trust me.
Hmm.
And she's like, the bread that's inside the monstrance, which is like the gold thing on the table, is Jesus. And I was like, oh yeah, like it's at mass or whatever. And she's like, yeah. She's like, but like it's not like a symbol, like it is.
Hmm.
And yeah, obviously Eucharist at mass isn't a symbol either, but you get me. Like
Yeah.
she was like, that's Jesus. Like we literally believe that is God, like on earth.
Hmm.
And like what's really funny is like I don't remember being confused by that. I really
Wow.
don't. I I know it, which is literally it's just the Holy Spirit. Like it is not anything about me or like my mind or intellect, because like what can the intellect grasp about the truth
Yeah.
and like beauty of the Eucharist? But like yeah, I don't know. I literally don't remember feeling any confusion. Like I feel like I believed it almost instantly. I was just like, oh, okay, cool. So like I believe you like that. It's
Wow.
like that's how it is. And yeah, and we like went into the next room and there was adoration, and it was really beautiful. I really actually really loved the way that they did it. So the priest would actually like bring the monstrance
Hmm.
around to like every student.
Oh wow.
And there would be like a moment. I know, right? It was so pretty. And so like and because we were all like kneeling in rows. And then so the priest would bring the monstrance around in almost like a Eucharistic procession and like stop at each person, and you get this like moment of like true face to face
Wow.
contact with Jesus. I
It's
know,
so
right?
beautiful.
It's so cool, and it's really funny because at the time I thought this was very normal. Like as like now as like a Catholic, like oh wow,
When
that
is
was
the
like a really
procession where they
beautiful and
bring
really
the?
yeah, right, like intense devotion. So cool. Um, but yeah, and I remember the monstrance like paused in front of me, and I could not look at him. Literally couldn't. I remember I like literally shut my eyes because I just like in that moment I just like I fully believed that that was Jesus, but I like also fully believed that like I was not supposed to look at him. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't allowed to. Um and yeah, and I remember I like started like crying almost. Like it was just this like very intense
I
like
got like
emotional moment. I
goosebumps during
remember.
the service.
Oh yeah, no, right. Also, my headphones died, so I'm gonna this if the microphone goes out, I'll switch to it on the computer, so it
Okay.
might be a little funny for a moment. Here, I can actually probably do that now. Let me try it.
Um, but yeah, and so I was just like, yeah, this really emotional moment, and like this part always like sounds really funny, but I just like very clearly like heard, I don't know, not heard like audibly, but just like I don't know, heard like in my heart, I guess. It's really easy when you like so Saint Faustina calls them like presentations to the intellect, or it's some verbiage like that, where it's not a vision, and it's not like any sort of audible or visual thing, but it's just this like the movement of the Holy Spirit in like your heart and your intellect. And basically, I just like very very clearly just like heard Our Lady. At the time I was like, oh wow, this is like a woman, but at the time like it was very clearly Our Lady, who is just like, like you're allowed to look at him, like you don't have to like hide away from him, like you're allowed. And I
So
just
beautiful.
yeah, I know. And I remember that like I not like fought against it. I was just like kind of like no, like I know, like I'm not supposed to, like I can't look at him, I'm not, like all these things. And I really really clearly just like remember her being like, like she literally asked, like, aren't I your mother? Like, isn't that my son, and aren't I your mother? And which is really funny because, like...
Wait, so this happened...
Oh, before I knew about, like, Our Lady of Guadalupe and all this. Oh, yeah, no. It was really funny. Like, literally, like, 6 months later or whatever, somebody told me about Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then, like... Or no, sorry. We were talking about my adoration, and then I had said this to my friend, Jordan, and he paused, and he was like, have you, like Our Lady of Guadalupe? And I was like, LOL, who's that? Because I didn't know anything. And so, this was before I knew, like, anything about that whatsoever, which is really, really funny. So I'll come back to that. But,
that's amazing,
yeah, because that's also, like, influential in other things. But, yeah, and so I think that was, like, the moment where, and, because then, of course, you know, like, I, like, looked at the monstrance, and I just, like, realized, like, you know, I don't know, I realized that, like, that was Jesus, and that not only was I allowed to look at him, but that he desired me to look at him. And yeah, like, that was probably the moment where I was like, I'm going to become Catholic, like, regardless of what that means, like, what that means, or, like, how I do it, or it wasn't really, you know, I definitely am a person of, like, once I make coming up to the decision, right, can be difficult for me, but, like, once the decision is made, like, it's made, you know, like, in that moment, like, it wasn't that I, like, didn't know, you know, like, what it would mean to be Catholic, all these things. It was more like I was ready to, like, do whatever I needed to do, whatever they asked of me, like, whatever I had to do or give up or whatever else, like, was, I mean, and to this day, like, I mean, is worth it. Because that meant, like, if it meant that I, like, could have Jesus in the Eucharist. But yeah, so that's, like, the moment.
There's probably a big gap between, like, deciding, okay, I'm going to become Catholic, and then, like, the day that you were confirmed. And
a huge gap.
Struggles and high points and all kinds of...
It's funny because, like, definitely, like, a gap. So, because that was, like, that retreat had taken place in, I think, like, October of my freshman year. And the priest at the parish was just kind of like a guy of, like, schedules. You know, he kind of liked everybody doing things at the same time by the programs, which, you know, is fine. Like, different priests have different preferences for stuff like that. So he actually asked me to wait to even start RCIA until the next year. So I actually waited, you know, I guess it was really a year and a half before I was confirmed, because I had to wait this sort of, like, year-ish to begin RCIA, and then there was the, like, 6 to 8 months of RCIA before I was confirmed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And for those who are not familiar with RCIA, so I refer to that. So RCIA is basically the rite of Christian initiation for adults. So it's basically the process where, if you're an adult, you go through some different liturgical things and become Catholic and make your first confession, then eventually be accepted into the church, you know, your confirmation at some point in the liturgical year at church, at Mass.
Yeah, it usually, usually a very popular time for reception is Easter Vigil, which is when I was received in the church, was Easter Vigil, which was March 26, 2016. It is actually still the password to my phone, even.
Oh, don't tell us that.
Oh, I guess that's true. I just use it, like, I just remember it really clearly. You can edit that out.
No, I'll leave it there.
Okay, cool. Well, you know, hey, if anybody ever wants to get in my phone. But yeah, no, so that was sort of the process. And honestly, like, which again is literally just by the grace of the Lord. Like, I don't think I've ever had a moment where I, like, even, like, passingly regretted it. You know what I mean? Like, even when, you know, it's meant making hard decisions, and, you know, choosing things that I, you know, maybe wouldn't have otherwise. I don't think there's ever been a moment where I wished that I hadn't made that decision, that I wasn't Catholic. Yeah. It's just, like, very quickly.
Was there anyone that was really instrumental to your conversion?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, like, it was really, like, so many people, because it really was, like, the like, community that I kind of came into. they very, very, very much sort of like showed me the beauty and love contained within the actual like body of the church, because like, of course, we have theology and we have, our traditions and our rituals and all of these things, which are of course so good and so excellent, and which, lend for our like sanctification. But ultimately, like, the church is an institution, but it's also like a people, it is the mystical body of Christ. It's the great community which lends itself unto heaven. Like, that's, I don't know, I think that's really like where I learned that was definitely like with them. And so, like, of course, like my like really good friends who would, sit around and have essentially like question hours where I would just like literally just ask question after question after question about Catholicism, and like who were so patient and taught me just, I don't know, everything. And when we're excited to do so, and it definitely was always very much like, I remember it was really cute. My first confession, actually at the same retreat, but I think like a year and a half or so later, right? It was before Easter. Okay. So it was the same retreat, just like a different one. It was actually where I had my first confession, and I remember that I did my first confession, and I came out, and like 4 of my friends literally ran and like hugged me, and they were like, it was kind of goofy, like they were literally like screaming at the top of their lungs like how excited they were. It was really cute. But like, yeah, so it was definitely like, I mean, lots and lots of individuals, but like definitely like that's what I think of when I think of like who like was instrumental in like my conversion. It just like again and again like my community, for sure.
Yeah. What were some of the questions that you had for them?
Oh my gosh, everything. Because I I grew up in Southern Baptist megachurch land, which is, not only theologically but particularly practically, as different as can be. There's no liturgy, there's no saints, there's hardly or a very, in comparison, a very young tradition. Whereas with
still tradition.
Yeah, right. Like, whereas with like Catholicism, it's like 2,000 years of and not just tradition, but also like, but written down tradition, things you can like look at and read, and all of these things, and all of these like practices and devotions and histories. I remember I used to call it a building of hallways, because you'd open a door and there would be a hallway of other doors, and you'd open that door and there would be another hallway, which, like, rather than ever finding intimidating, and to this day I still find deliriously exciting. It is my favorite thing in the world. I love that, I can always keep going and keep reading and keep learning. And I don't find that.
Even just going to mass, like the symbolism. There's so
yes,
much, like,
so cool, right?
The saying that it's what is it? Ever ancient, ever new. Like there's so much.
Yes, no, but it's true, and like, and it's so fun because it's like, it's not even like, I'm trying to think of like the words. It's not even that like, oh, here's, a thing you can read from a long time ago that like we take on as, being part of our tradition. It's like, no, it's like Saint Ignatius of Antioch in, the very first centuries or whatever, writing about the Eucharist as the body and blood of Jesus Christ. Like, our doctrines, have obviously, kind of like not changed, but like been adjusted and been added into, and et cetera, but like the sort of like, I don't know, prime dogmas, other than the Marian ones, but a lot of them are like centuries upon centuries and centuries old, and the Eucharist particularly can be traced back to I think like the 2nd or the 3rd century even, and so it's this concept of that there's always something more, and like also that like so I would there's tons of questions about that, and that's just the sort of like the intellectual, right, the things you can read and learn. That doesn't even get into the sort of like spiritualities and the practices and like all kinds of things. I remember one time I spent an entire hour with my friend Claire, and I just wanted to know about like the Pope and the Curia and like how that even functioned and like why, you know, he even exists. And it's funny because I was like always finding more things to be curious about. Like, I don't know, like one time I went to mass and it was St. Blaise's Day, and so the priest had the 2 candles that go by your throat or whatever, which, you know, I found just completely strange. I mean, I did it because I was like, cool, I guess this is simply what we do on this day.
If you know, you know.
Oh yeah, I know, right? It's absolutely fun. But yeah, so yeah, everything. And I mean, I'm still asking. There's still so many times where
sure.
I even like to this day, excuse me, like ask questions and curious about things like that, which is really cool.
Yeah. I felt like when I was a Protestant, there was a lot, like an evangelical, there was a lot of pressure to like know for myself the right answer and to come to it by myself. And
yes.
It was very freeing when I became Catholic, and I'm like, oh, like I can just
you can just look it up.
Like, I don't have to depend on my own intellectual ability to come to the right answer, which was very freeing for me.
There, like, kind of how I was saying how, like, my relationship with the Lord, like, before I was Catholic was very much one of, like, anxiety. This was a huge one for me because, like, when you're not, when everything depends on you, right, and, like, how smart you are, I guess, or how holy or whatever, that is, like, it's an insane amount of pressure. And, like, you know, especially because, like, there's very much the sense of, like, if you get it wrong, then it's, like, very serious and all these things. And so, like, I found it very anxiety-provoking to, you know, constantly be wondering, am I doing things right? Am I understanding this the correct way? And then, like, so, no, I think the magisterium is, like, one of my favorite things, even and the Vatican generally. Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, I really love this because I'm Catholic and this is, you know, part of being Catholic. I love it because, like, there's a feeling of, like, of safety, of structure. I mean, human beings by our natures need structure and routine and, like, these external these externals. Like, people think, like, you know, and even Catholics, I've found sometimes that Catholics sometimes very much sort of, like, chastise themselves because they think, oh, you know, I really should, you know, want to do XYZ more, or I should really want to, like, you know, I should know more, you know, all of these things. And it's like, you know, it's okay, like, the entire reason we have things like obligation is because, like, it's a recognition that sometimes you're not going to want to go to mass, right? Like, that's just being a human being. You, like, obligation and duty is hard even for something that you desperately love. Like, that's just, like, that's part of what it means. And so, like, things like obligation and boundaries and structure are actually, like, deeply necessary. Yeah,
absolutely. So you joined the church. You were confirmed in 2016, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, what's it like being Catholic now?
What's it like being Catholic now? It's great. No, it's, so I'm just trying to put words together.
Sorry, that's a very big question.
No, it's okay. I can talk about, like, what I've been doing since then, and then that can kind of, like, I think that'll probably naturally progress. So basically, like, you know, I, like, joined the church or whatever, and then I continued doing things, and then in, like, summer of 2017, I had been discerning, well, I had been talking to a religious order for quite a while, and then that fall I visited them, and I was, like, honestly, like, fully intending to enter after college. But unfortunately, it ended up not working.
To enter, like, the religious
life. To enter the religious life after college. And then I had taken, like, the LSAT and applied to law school kind of as, like, in my head, it was, like, a backup. But it ended up not working out with the religious order because, unfortunately, I was not allowed to apply because I have tattoos. So that was, unfortunately, a restriction on entry for that order. And so I kind of was like, all right, I mean, that was my backup, was law school. So I sort of just half-heartedly, like many law students, I sort of just went because it was, a thing to do after college. But I think what, changed it into what it is now, which is very, very much, a calling and, a feeling of, service to the Lord and responsibility, is in the spring of 2018 in Morristown, Tennessee, which is about an hour away from my college. There was a mass immigration raid on a factory town called Morristown. And and at that time it was the biggest immigration raid in 10 years. I think they ended up arresting 100 people at once. The next day, 500 kids missed school because, either they had known somebody who was taken, and it was just very, very traumatic experience for this community. And the local Catholic Church in Morristown, St. Patrick's, which is a really, really precious, little place, literally within, hours of the raid, became, central base for their entire community. They literally opened their doors and said, first of all, anybody who comes can declare sanctuary with us, which is people can still do this. They can still claim sanctuary to be protected from arrest, except in certain cases. But yeah, it's people can come and claim sanctuary and stay with us. They were on the phone with organizing volunteer lawyers and volunteers generally, with again all within hours. And just really, really, stepped up and were what the church should be for all of their communities, which is, that safe place. But particularly that safe place for the vulnerable. And I was just very deeply moved by that, and very deeply, not challenged in that it was hard, but called, I definitely saw that, and it was sort of an ultimatum to me, because it was okay, either I'm going to be that, or I'm not, or I'm going to be, I'm going to say no to that. To me, that's very much just how it presented itself. And so I decided that if I was going to go to law school, it was to be an immigration lawyer, and I was going to, work for those who are continually oppressed by the U.S. government. And I kind of never stopped doing that. And I decided to go to Catholic University because I wanted to go to a Catholic school. I had never done a Catholic school before, and I thought that was fun. And it ended up being really great because, it's in Washington, D.C., which is where a lot of these really big national organizations are. And so I got very involved in the sort of human rights and sort of just working for the dignity of human beings, but particularly immigrants, which was really great. And so which I know it's funny, you asked how is being a Catholic now, and so the reason I say all this and to answer that question is that is what being a Catholic to me now looks like, is I very much see it as being the person who will be a sanctuary for those around them. To me, that's what it means to be Catholic. And so I think now I'm kind of figuring out what that looks like for me, figuring out what it looks like to be a sanctuary for the vulnerable, and making room for them to speak, because it's a common phrase is being the voice for the voiceless, but that's actually not our role. Our role is in fact to make room so that the voiceless can in fact gain their voice, which is a distinction.
Oh, that's so good. Yes.
Listen, it's not even my phrase. I remember I heard that one time, an activist was giving a talk and said that, and I was yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, right. So and what's really cool is as I've kind of made my kind of daily prayer and spirituality more, towards this idea of justice and things, finding out again, because we're so old and so cool, how massively implanted this is in our tradition.
Oh, yeah.
Back to the, like, you know, 2nd and 3rd and 4th centuries. Like, perfect example. Ignatius of Antioch, right, wrote this huge letter on the Eucharist. It's literally why we know how old our Eucharistic tradition is. It's like the first time the word Eucharist is used. Really, really, really cool, right? The reason he writes it is because the ancient church in Rome, basically in Rome, it was really, really common to essentially, like, when, you know, children were unwanted, or the elderly, or just, you know, anybody who just really wasn't wanted or who couldn't be taken care of, they were essentially tossed in the streets and just left to die. That was sort of just how it worked. And but particularly, you know, children and infants. And the church in Rome was, like, really famous for taking those people in. And taking these children and the you know, injured and elderly and things like that. And there was an accusation, or a rumor rather, in Rome, because they had vaguely heard of this church who consumed the blood and body of their god, you know, all these things. And so they became this huge blood cult rumor, essentially. We were accused of being a blood cult.
That Catholics were, like, cannibals.
Yeah, no, literally. And this was why. It was because, you know, we were, like, taking these people in, and so these, like, huge rumors that Catholics, you know, stole infants off the street to, you know, consume them, I guess. So Ignatius of Antioch was like, so let me explain. It's kind of important that you know this. We're not a blood cult. I mean, we are kind of, but not the way you think. And yeah, and
we're weird, but not like that.
No, right. We're weird, but not like that. Right. We don't eat the body and blood of people. We call our deity down onto the altar and eat him. It's great, right? That's what's going on. It's cool.
Not weird at all.
It's fine. It's great. It's fine. It's all fine. But yeah, no. And so, like, you know, that. And you know, the hundreds of other saints, Saint Basil the Great. I can never say his name right. I can write it. It's Tertullian or Tertullian. I can never say it correctly.
That's how I would have said it.
No, right? But you know who I'm talking about. Like, I can write it out. You know, and him talking about how, you know, Catholics should never be soldiers for, you know, XYZ reasons, because he has this amazing line where it's, you know, when Christ disarmed Peter, he disarmed the entirety of the human race.
That's good.
Oh, is it? Oh, he was a good one.
Beautiful.
He was a great one for lines.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, I think that's what being a Catholic right now, you know, looks like for me, is kind of finding my place in this tradition of justice and spreading the gospel and the truth of Christ's love by asserting the dignity of my fellow man. It's kind of like,
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's all cousin.
That's so beautiful that, like, as a Catholic, there is a place for everyone. Like, some people are very inspired by the spirituality. Others, you know, it's like the theological tradition or philosophical traditions. Like, whatever it is, like, there's a place for you. That's so cool that, like, what God has put in your heart and how, like, you're able to live that out.
Absolutely. I mean, we are, you know, it means we are the universal church, but, like, what's cool about us is, like, we're universal in that we apply to, you know, we're for everybody, not universal in that we're all the same, right? It's almost a paradox. We're the great unified diversity, as it were.
Huh.
Yeah, which is just really cool because that's the whole point, right? I mean, St. Paul talks about, you know, many members of one body, and, like, and we think of, you know, there's, like, a really fun kind of dual play on words he's doing where it's, like, many members of one body of people, but also many literal members, like, limbs of a body. And, you know, you think of, like, all the parts of the body and how they do radically completely different things, but, like, they are one flesh, like, they are bound together. And the church operates in the exact same way, right? Like, the eyes are no better than the ears, but they both do radically different things. And in the same way, the, you know, theologies and spiritualities of the Dominicans and the, you know, Jesuits and Franciscans, all these things are, you know, different, but perform equally important operations. And so, yeah, so no, I really love it. It's really fun.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have one last question for you.
By all means.
What would you say to someone that was maybe interested in becoming Catholic, or what encouragements would you have for someone that was interested?
I have to think about how to say this like a normal human being, because I can get really intense with it really quickly. I always joke that, like, I take it as seriously as it is, right? So like, I mean, if asked to say why a person should become Catholic in the very kind of like serious way I think about it, in the way that I, write about it in my prayers and all these things, I mean, it's because all of time and all of history since ever has led up to the moment where, a person would accept Christ. Like, that's like, Pope Benedict. No, right? Like, it's like very intense, which is very funny, but it's true, is the thing. Like, Pope Benedict has this phenomenal meditation about how, how Christ, right, is the singular creative being, right? He is the only thing that can create ever. And as such, right, the fact that we exist are proof that we were a choice. Like, we didn't just pop it, into place. Like, we were willfully desired into being by God, who, made the rings of Saturn and like all of these other like impossibly amazing and really large things. And then you realize he made them for us and not the other way around. So yeah, like all of the universe and all of time and all of space have all been knit together for the precise, mission that like maybe we might love him back. Like that's the really intense thing I would say to a person who's like, why should I become Catholic? Because the foundations of your created being were meant to be Catholic. But we're also cool. We're also fun. We have lots of fun little feast days. It's really nice. It's cute. But yeah, but also because like they're wanted, like it's, why should you be Catholic? I don't know, like because Christ wants you and we want you, and like it's where all of humanity belongs.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
That's such a beautiful thought. I just don't even know what to say about it.
And that's the church, right? Yeah. That's what's so cool. Is like that's the church, and this isn't even me being like particularly eloquent or wow, what a brand new thought Mikhayla is introducing into the world. Like, no, this is it. This is who we are and have been since the first century, when like Christ became incarnate specifically to preach this message like to the apostles, who would then preach it onto the rest of the world. Like, it's not that this is a particularly eloquent phrasing. It's just who we are at our base, which is why it's really great. This is why you should become Catholic. Who wouldn't want to be?
Yeah.
It's great.
I agree. Perfect. Well, awesome. Well, I think that's all of the questions that I had. This has been super fun. And
I'm so glad.
It's just been awesome to like see more of your beautiful faith, and I'm so excited to get to share it with others. So
absolutely, and thank you for having me. It's really, oh, sorry, I totally just talked over you. I was just going to say thank you for having me and for letting me ramble on about this. Obviously it is, I love it a lot. And so, yeah, I know it's always a joy to like talk about why I'm Catholic, because it's the best part of my life. So it's a joy to be able to talk about it.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, last question, where can people find you online?
People can find me online on Twitter, which is it's at Talitha, TALITHA _rising, RISING. And that's my Twitter. And I think my Instagram is also the same. And on Facebook, because my name is there. But yeah, that's where you can find me online.
Awesome. Very good.
Cool.
Well, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. So
awesome.
Thanks everyone for listening.